Solution. We utterly deny that it means bringing Great Britain into conflict with the world of Islam. We utterly deny that it means a real physical conflict with the neighboring states. We deny all this. It's been exaggerated beyond all recognition. It's not true. Given a firm resolve made clearly known to both Jews and Arabs, all this would be performed with the normal smoothness of any other equally big colonization enterprise. Anyway. As to keeping the country quiet and avoiding disturbances, I've already submitted, try what has never been tried by, try reestablishing the Jewish regiment, or battalion it should be called, as part and parcel of the permanent garrison, legitimatize Jewish self-defense, and so on. So, of course, none of that, they're not going to do any of this. And he's just whistling in the wind here, but it's nice that he puts it out. You have heard of compromises, halfway houses which are being suggested, including cantonization, or parity, or cultural rapprochement, or the Jews giving in. These are the things that were being tossed about then. Believe my sincerity, and it is the sincerity of the whole movement, the sincerity of every Jew I am now trying to avoid. We wish a halfway house could be possible, but it's perfectly impossible. We cannot accept cantonization like in Switzerland, and so on. Even, some would say, even the whole of Palestine may prove too small for the humanitarian purposes we need. A corner, a canton, that's impossible. We can't accept that. If we said we could, we would be lying. How can we give in? What can be the concession of Oliver Twist? We do not believe any compromise on these lines. Cantonization is a dream. It will never be enforced. Will never or believed by anybody, and trying it again and again means prolonging the state of things, which in my submission has led to the riots of 1920, 1921, 1929, and 1936, and will lead again to more riots in effect. The only way is to tell the Arabs the truth, and then you will see the Arab becomes reasonable, the Arab is clever, the Arab is just, the Arabs can realize that since there are 3 or 4 or 5 holy Arab states, then it's a thing of justice which Great Britain is doing if Palestine is transformed into a Jewish state. Well, you might have thought that was true, but as we've discovered, that is not true. It's my unpleasant duty to wind up by taking into consideration a melancholy, pessimistic contingency. What will happen if what the Jews desire cannot be conceded by Great Britain? I wish I could omit mentioning that contingency for many personal reasons. Jewish national reasons, but to admit it is impossible. We are asked very often, whatever is meant by the Balfour Declaration was promised in 1917. But since then, perhaps the British people have honestly come to the conclusion that they cannot do it. I deny it. I affirm they can. But when I'm asked, when any Jew is asked, what are the Jews going to pin us down to the promise and say, you promised, Shylock, promised the pound of flesh, passed the pound of flesh? Gentlemen, here I answer you, in the name of the most extreme, I am the most extreme Zionist party, I admit it, no. If Great Britain is really unable to do it, not unwilling, I'd change it, but unable, we bow to that decision, but then we should expect her to give back the mandatory. Anyone who feels he cannot carry out the mandate should give it back, and so on and so forth. Okay, we read all that. And some of you had a question. Now, first of all, there was someone who was asking me about Menachem Begin. Was it you? What were you asking about Menachem Begin?
You said something like Jabotinsky didn't really have any good predecessors. I think, well...
successors.
Successors, yeah.
Successors. Well, Begin, I mentioned Menachem Begin.
It's too dirty, you know.
Now, we mentioned Menachem Begin, and he's someone that people have heard of. I don't think we have any selections here from Menachem Begin. There was an organization founded. It was called the Irgun Zwei Leumi. Short, the Irgun. This is something that was known by the time of after the Second World War, and there was another group as well called Lehi. And what did that stand for? I'm not. Oh, I know. Lochamei Israel. Lochamei means fighters of Israel. These were the two underground organizations that the British were trying to suppress in Palestine after this commission. That they, this ultimately became known as the Stern Gang by the British. Maybe some of you have heard of the Stern Gang. Anyway, that was Lehi, Lochamei Israel. And this was Irgun Zvi Israel Leumi, the organization of the Army of the People. The organization of the Army of the People. So they did start these underground organizations to try to combat the mandate and bring in illegal immigration. Now, Begin was someone who came from Russia at the time of the World War II period. He was known in Russian Zionist circles, perhaps, but he was unknown in Palestine by the British. So when he came to Palestine, he was smuggled into Palestine through Syria and I think Turkey or whatever. He assumed a leadership role as an underground person because the British had no record on him, no dossier, no fingerprints, nothing about him. He was unknown to them. And that's how he rose to prominence. But he was not someone that people knew much about. And as time went on, when finally Begin did come to power, the Irgun became the party that you now, it became the right-wing party. The kibbutz movements, the moshav movements became the left-wing party, the Labor Party. If you want to read more about labor Zionism, as I told you in the Zionist idea, but I really don't have time to cover labor Zionism. You can read about it in your History of Zionism book if you want. It's not really something that can be, dealt with in the course of too much thinking. You have a Ben Gurion article in 604. Is there anything in the Ben Gurion 604 that would be of interest to us? He's really the representative of what was called the Histadrut, and it's all in here. Histadrut is the labor union organization, so he rose up to the labor union organizations. He's not a very sophisticated thinker ideologically. You can read the piece in here by Ben Gurion if you want, but I don't think it adds a lot to it. And the other thinker in here is Gordon, A.D. Gordon. He was the sort of ideologue of the labor